This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome everybody to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Dropping this podcast on Christmas Eve. We wish everybody that's listening, that's downloading, a very Merry Christmas. Hope everybody's having a good time, staying safe, enjoying Detroit sports. What's up, cuz?
Merry Christmas, you ho-ho-ho.
Yeah, it's a good time, man. Finally, so a little bit of time off. We're recording this early in the week.
If there was ever a bigger sports media ho, it's you.
That's right, baby. Put a camera in my face and I'll definitely light up, man. It's fun. It really is fun. Or a press conference when there's something interesting to talk about. You'll hear me chime in a little bit. Otherwise, just stay in the background. That's how you got to do it, man. You got to be an opportunist. You know, everybody that has a brain is a self-promoter, if you know what I mean. And I think that we'll talk about that, the value of self-promotion in the context of an organization. And I think, too, it's interesting in regards to Brayden Coombs before we talk about it. His age, 33, 34, young upstart. I can recall that age, and I have some good insight. We'll talk about kind of where we stand with a major decision that the Detroit Lions made earlier this week. But before we start, I'm so fascinated by this. It's crazy because of the fact that you and I are gentlemen. We have gone to strip clubs in the past, but for Dwayne Haskins to step out after a game in COVID is mind-boggling, because I really would have figured strip clubs would have been one of the first places where you go, you know what? That has a real chance of being a super spreader. Close them all down, right alongside restaurants, right alongside places where people gather and things like that. But Dwayne Haskins couldn't resist, had to come out with a public apology. The crazy part is, how do you make that decision knowing you're a public figure? It's not like you're the fourth string quarterback. You're not David Blau. He can go do whatever he wants. No one's going to know. They're going to think, oh, do you work at the post office? Didn't I see you deliver my mail? Dwayne Haskins just played in the game, and you showed up to the strip club, and you're potentially harming million-dollar businesses and athletes and their livelihood. How do they make this decision? I know the appeal is strong. That's why I give them a violation in terms of how mad, like a 40 on a scale of 1 to 100. But how do you not? Does anybody in the crew go, man, we could get the Rona, we could get sick, someone's gonna catch us? And look,
I think it tells you. I think it tells you how mature he is, and I think that's part of the issue there.
Yeah,
this is a situation where you were the starting quarterback on Sunday.
Yeah.
You were the guy. On top of that, you were the franchise quarterback. You're the guy that they drafted, 2 years ago? And you lost your job to a guy who's had 17 different surgeries and almost lost his leg.
Yeah.
And yet you're deciding to go to a strip club after you played a absolutely brutal game. You should be in the locker room watching some film, taking a couple extra snaps, working on something. Instead, you want to go to the strip club, be in there without a mask, and then possibly bring that back and ruin your team's chance to make it to the playoffs. I mean, you play in the NFC East. If there was never a gaggle of teams that were so deplorable yet still stand a chance to make it to the playoffs, it is every team in the NFC East. You're like 4-7, and you're like leading the division. This is what we're talking about. What is going on? What's going through your head where you're like, yeah, it's a good idea. Let's go to the titty bar and let's put a couple dollars in a G-string.
Exactly. Look,
I love the titty bar. You love the titty bar. We love the titty bar. But we're not putting anybody at risk. Like, I'm not going to the titty bar right now because, like you said, possible super spreader situation. Like, what is going on?
And nobody wants to be a purveyor of perversion, but when you have wealth, the whole world can come to you. I mean, what kind of friends these people have? You just say, you know what? I'm bored. I need to, rile it up a little bit. Call your friend and say, look, let's make it happen. Come back to the place. Nobody, drop your phones off at the door. Let's handle our business. Nobody knows anything. You do your thing. You do your, obligation. Get that testosterone flowing. Because look, I get that part of it. You're playing in a game. Your adrenaline's high. You don't want to keep that. They're young. I get it. But the thing is that I'm surprised that the notion of bring everything to the home. Home has not been drilled into this young man's head. Everything in the world can come to your home on the drop of a dime with the push of a button. For you to go out publicly is crazy. It's craziness. And that's the part of life that's fascinating, is knowing that things are bad for you, yet still doing it. And then in an age of publicity, you still go out and do it and get caught, have to issue a public apology. You got your head coach probably livid. And sometimes maybe he is trying to act in a way subconsciously to get out of that situation. He doesn't care anymore. And that's what wealth will do to you sometimes when you give a bunch of young, immature people a bunch of money. They just don't make the right choices. But listen, everything in this world can happen at your place, especially in COVID. So bad choice for Dwayne Haskins, bonehead of the week, and probably going to be on his way out, because there's no way a man like Ron Rivera with the background that he's got is going to want to put up with that going forward. Absolutely not. Unacceptable. Major violation. Bonehead of the week. Crazy stuff. Now, is it at the same level of what Brayden Coombs did? That story, cuz, is so fascinating on a lot of levels, because it brings into the dynamic of the boss-employee relationship, making the right call, being part of a dysfunctional organization, people taking sides, whether the firing was justified, the brazen action of Brayden Coombs. Pay attention, because there's so many underlying dynamics that are fascinating. And I think one point that people are bringing up now is, what would have happened if that fake punt would have been successful? If the athlete was actually smart and could get the first down and could leap or go into the end zone, maybe does he keep his job? Probably not, based on the severity of what he did. But on the surface, I think people also identify with Brayden because of the fact that he was successful as a coach amidst chaos. So people are willing to even put aside blatant insubordination to do that. But we started off with the very, very basic notion of only the Lions would have a situation where a coach, not the boss, could call a play, give a signal, and a player would execute it, and the head coach be completely befuddled. I've never heard of that. I can't believe it happened. I can't believe it's even possible, because if I'm a head coach, knowing what's going on, the risk and everything, there is no way that a team coached by John McEnroe is going to be having a coach run a play without it going through my headset. And if it happens, we're addressing it right there on the field, going, what the heck? I'm not walking away. Bevel showed restraint. If you see that clip, that quick GIF, he showed restraint. How does that happen? How does a coach just make his own call?
I think that's probably the most telling thing about all of this with this organization. You have a interim head coach, yet he has no idea what the special teams coordinator is doing. Like, how did this play get called in and the head coach just completely be unaware? How does something like that happen? How does the special teams coordinator signal or tell the player that, hey, we're going to run a fake punt deep in our own zone and we're just going to try to execute this, yet the head coach has no clue that this takes place? I think if there is nothing more fitting of the dysfunction of this organization, it is that play right there. And like, here's the thing too. Brayden Coombs is arguably the best coordinator on this staff.
Yep.
Because the special teams unit was arguably the best unit on this team, on this roster right now. So him being a little bit brazen, I get it. I think it was really telling the fact that they didn't even attempt to challenge that spot.
Right.
Like when I watched it in real time, I was like, I'm almost positive he got that. And I thought it was kind of a bad spot. And then I watched it on the replay and I was like, I kind of think he got that. And they did not challenge that at all. And after that, the game kind of got away from the Lions. Lions were kind of in striking distance, but you could tell the tenor of the game. Anytime that Tennessee wanted it, Tennessee got it. And so it was just weird, man. So dysfunctional as an organization from top to bottom.
I absolutely agree. And here's the part that fans are looking at. Why not just go for it anyway? Why take the offense off the field? But Bevel explained it thoroughly. He said, look, Stafford got hit second and third down, didn't probably think it was going to happen. They were still within 14. But the argument that the smart, great fans of Detroit said is, what on earth would give you any sort of confidence that your defense is going to stop it? You should just assume you were down 21 the second the third down play ended. You should be like, okay, we're down 21. Even though you're really only down 14, your defense is terrible. What gave you any inclination your defense was going to stand up and make a play? From this 2020 season, you should assume that, okay, We're not going to make the play. We're down 21. Let's just go happen. Okay, remember, I do know, guys, we were down 14. But I'm assuming, you know what? Just go for it. Figure out 4th and 5. What do you got to lose? So I think earlier in the week, obviously based on what people are surmising and figuring out, Brayden Coombs probably is pissed. Being a 34-year-old, hot-headed young coach, losing, having the guy that brought him get fired, having the success that he's having, looking at a situation where Darrell Bevell is just conservative. On certain things, he's conservative. That was a moment that he needed to be aggressive. So he made the call. He did it. And I think probably he doesn't care that he got fired from the Lions because he pretty much knew I'm already getting fired. Does this impact his future in the league? I doubt it because the players love him. It's bold. And I do think that some teams will appreciate it because he's going to come and say, look, it was 4th down. I made the move. We've been arguing all week. Bevell's super passive, doesn't want to do it. I know the defense blows. I made the call. If it was a major gamble, I took the risk, and so be it. I got fired 2 weeks early. So what? I'm part of an organization that probably 99.9% wasn't going to value me anyway, and why would I stay there? So I get it, but he's young. I bet you in 10 years he'll say, yeah, that was a really stupid thing to do, to override the head coach of a National Football League team because you're going to get fired. But the reason why, and I think I love this kind of dynamic where it's 50-50, where people are like, you know what? Screw it. It's the Lions. The Lions brought this upon themselves because nobody has supreme respect for your organization. So when you do something technically correct, everybody will question it because it's the Lions. The interim head coach is consulting with an accountant to decide a bright young head coach potential is future with the team. Okie dokie. And it doesn't even go through Chris Spielman yet. You know, you didn't even bother to go, you know what? We consulted with Chris. You're like, oh, he hasn't even been here yet. It's like, don't you think the future, I would say this, the way we need to ask this. If it was us, I'm leaning toward, if it was the 35-year-old me, he would have been fired that moment. Okay, he would have just been off the field, gone, off the sideline, be gone. The 41, 42-year-old me goes, damn, that motherfucker tried it. That's bold as shit. I know he's going to come tell me it was aggressive. He just disagreed with it. He did it. I would have kept him. I would have said, you know what? I'm comfortable in my own position. I'm the guy. I'm keeping you here because I see a future. You're actually helping us win. So while you're going to get suspended, you're going to pay me a boatload of money, you're going to pay for a Bahamas vacation for me and the family, I'm going to let it slide. I don't think, no, me in my 30s, I would never tolerate that. I would have flew off the handle, been pointing fingers, what the hell's going on, lost control. When you hit 40, you don't care as much about silly stuff. But Brayden had a future. That's the thing. Everybody in Detroit that's a fan goes, damn, this guy potentially, even though he's a special teams coordinator, could go on, work his way up, and you know if we get to the postseason one time, the coach is going to be standing across, is going to be Brayden Coombs, and he's going to put the hurting on Detroit, like 69-0, and he's going to be like, the fake punt was the best godsend. I learned to contain it, and he becomes a great coach. You know it's coming. It's so like interwoven in the history of the Lions that an interim coach fires a bright young coach who goes on to be successful, or he flames out. But what a fascinating dynamic. Would you have given a pass? How would you think you would have handled it if someone just made that call on your watch?
Well, here's the thing. Nobody would have even realized what took place until the firing happened.
Right.
Like nobody knew. Nobody had a second thought. Like, okay, cool. They rolled the dice. They went for a fake. It didn't work. It looked like it might have worked. It was a complete and utter afterthought. It was like the afterthought to the afterthought. Nobody was talking about this on Monday. Nobody was talking about this on Sunday. The only reason we're talking about it now is because the guy lost his job because of it. All of this could have stayed internal. Like you said, they could have fined him. They could have pulled him up to the side and been like, what the hell's going on? Now, this sounds like it is a much bigger issue. And it'll be interesting to see what the other story is or what the other side of the story is that comes out. Because this sounds like this has been something that's been going on for a little bit of time. At least most of this season is kind of the tenor that I'm picking up from it. So it'll be interesting to see what is said going forward. But nobody would have even known that was Brayden Coombs' call. Everybody would have just thought Bevell grew a couple balls and tried something.
Right. And that's the thing.
It's so weird that the fact that this is now a talking point for us and the fact that it makes it on our podcast is crazy to me because we would never have even discussed this. And it's one of those things where I think there are a couple different ways you could have handled it, right? And really and truly, it comes from what's really been going on. And again, we don't know all of the details. It sounds like Brayden Coombs has a little bit of a me first personality. At least that's what the Lions are saying. It'll be interesting to see if Brayden Coombs talks about this.
What's wrong with that, though? It's football.
Well, there's not a ton wrong with that, but if it starts interfering with the game plan for the team, that's when it becomes a bit of an issue.
But it's working.
In this case right here, he put the team in a bad spot because them not getting it, it led to an automatic 7 points for Tennessee.
It was going to be 7 points. See, that's the part that makes the story juicy, is that his method is wrong, but he's a successful coach. He's probably sitting there going, I am being coached by the most conservative dude who has Matthew Stafford, who won't win, who won't play the odds correctly. Brayden Coombs could be right. That's the thing that I think is fascinating, is he went about it wrong. Obviously, you don't do it. But like you said, he's the best coach. So he's sitting there going, this is crazy. Why are we not going for it? Why are we not challenging it? What the hell is going on? This defense blows. He should literally, in his presser, if he has one, or ever addresses it, should say, we've been going at it all month. He needs to use math, and he needs to figure out how to be aggressive.
The way football works, it's a hierarchy program.
Right.
So you have to follow who's ahead of you. And it's all like a chain of command.
Yep.
So you are lucky enough to be your own boss in multiple different facets. Okay? So you don't necessarily have to report to anybody besides yourself. Maybe to your wife. That's about it. That would be like me completely going rogue at my job and superseding my boss. Now, I've done this a couple of times, and it usually ends up poorly for me.
Right. Everybody's going to say something.
Like this is a prime example. I had a fixture put on a program that we have at work so that our maintenance tech can come in and just take it out of the building. Now, I discussed this with his boss, but I didn't bother discussing this with him. So when the maintenance tech came in to remove this item, he was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he got into the maintenance tech's face, and he was like, "It's right here on the list." And when I came in a few hours later, he grabbed me, pulled me in the office, and he laid into me. And I was just kind of like, "All right," and I just kind of looked at him. I was like, "All right, my bad. I don't know what you want me to tell you." And then 2 weeks later, he's like, "It looks better." So it was the right move, but the way I went about it was wrong.
Exactly.
And this is one of those types of situations. It might have been the right move. He went about it the wrong way, though.
Now, that's football. But this, and I can share, that's part of the reason why I started my own practice. At a previous clinic, the boss was super cool, treated me very well, was just around, and there was something going on that I wanted to talk about, and obviously there was the site managers that were there. So I just had a brief moment, because you're busy in a clinic. You see client after client after client. I just went up and said, "Oh, hey, bop, 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 bop." And he's like, "Okay, got it. Yeah, no problem. You got taken care of." The next day I get called in and they tell me, "Next time, don't do that. Don't go right to him. You need to follow the chain of command." And I said, come on. This wasn't like a major thing. It was just a suggestion based on an observation I made that could have been quickly addressed. He's right there. Mm-hmm. And because the managers felt like I usurped their power, it was stupid. And from that moment on, it was like, okay, boom, I can't do this. I don't want to work with people. Working with people is super hard. I have a vision. And that's why I can relate to Brayden in that, yes, it was wrong. It's a wrong choice. We can classify it as wrong. But the dude's had success. I think that's where he gets the benefit of the doubt, is that the dude's been a successful coach, top 5 special teams unit. Arguably, all the players love him. Got Jack Fox to be a Pro Bowler. So, and there's an opportunity that maybe he could be part of the future of the franchise. But when you make that decision and you've been acting the way you've been acting, he's been acting like a hotshot head coach. But I think that the way my 41, 42-year-old brain is now thinking is, okay, really bad decision, really rough around the edges. You sit him down and you say, look, absolutely, you need to come out and publicly apologize, speak very highly of Darrell Bevell, speak on everything that's great about this organization, and then you're going to, take some shit and you're going to do some things. Similar to Triple H, if you're a wrestling fan. He did the click thing and he didn't get fired. He got obviously torn apart and got jobbed for months on end. He took his business and they kept him, and look what he became. And in that vein, you take a young guy who made an ultimate decision that's wrong, but he could have learned from it, and potentially you could have groomed a head coach that might be a young hotshot. You never know. Doing it this way, look, it's one of those situations where I can't fault him for doing it. He usurped power. But I would say that in the name of potential benefits, you might have lost out on a potential hot young head coach, or at least somebody that can run your special teams in the future in 2021 to be successful. Now Jack Fox is going to be looking funny. Now the special teams is going to be like, what the heck? Jamal Agnew came out and said something. So that's where I think the angst and the anger comes from, is like, you know what? He might have deserved a pass just based on his decision and his role and the success that he had. And that was basically the question that I asked. And thankfully, Bevel addressed it forthright. And he said, you know, John, to be honest, I thought about it all night, but I have to maintain my credibility in this locker room. And for Darrell Bevell, unfortunately, he had to put himself ahead of the Lions because he's not guaranteed a job. And so that's why the interim tag makes it so juicy, so crazy that this scenario played out, because it's 55-45. I believe that they could have kept him. I would not have been mad. Like, you think there would be an outcry? Would you have viewed Darrell Bevell as soft or a guy that you could walk over? The title interim means you don't have as much power. You know, you're the interim head coach. You're like, okay, yeah, we don't believe, 5-game audition. You would have had to have gone 5-0 and win by 2 touchdowns for even half of us to consider you to be qualified for the interview. So to pull rank when you're the interim head coach of the Detroit Lions sounds stupid. And that's how it's being portrayed. And unfortunately for Brayden Coombs, maybe he said, okay, the writing's on the wall, this organization's rank, I'm just going to do it. And if I'm gone, it's win-win for me. I get to see my family. Heck, if they respect me enough, they'll pay me for next year. Or I get another opportunity to coach somewhere better where the future's bright. And that's where the dysfunction of the Lions is so crazy. It's the biggest indictment of the dysfunction of the team. The interim head coach fires a potential quality head coach moving forward, or quality special teams coordinator at this point. So it's a real interesting thing. Only the Lions, cuz only the Lions could have this happen too.
It's so weird because he looks like he was one of the bright spots of this organization.
That's it.
Just a cloud of disarray, and you end up firing because he makes a brazen move. I have a bit of a scenario for you, though. And this involves Matt Stafford, because it seems like every time we talk about the Lions, it always kind of loops back to Matt Stafford. And it kind of feels like Matt Stafford might not be here next year, because he went up to Sheila, he went to Chris Spielman, went to whoever, Rod Wood, and maybe he demanded a trade. I don't know. This hasn't come out yet. This is pure speculation. But it just kind of feels like some of the people who are close to Matt Stafford are talking a little bit more. And if you start doing some of the reading around this organization and Matt Stafford, it seems like all signs point to he might not be here.
Yes.
So I have 2 different scenarios for you, and I want to know which direction you would go in, because I know which direction I would go in, but I want to see where you're at. I want to know if we're in lockstep. So next year, would you keep Matt Stafford and invest heavily in this defense with the draft and free agency? Because obviously the offense is a little bit further along. Actually, the offense is a lot further along than this defense. This defense is historically bad. Or would you take a chance and attempt to draft a quarterback somewhere around 8 or 9, which is probably where they'll finish with the draft this year, let Galladay walk and trade as many guys as you can trade so you get more draft capital, and spend the bulk of the draft on getting that defense right, getting your future quarterback, and adding 1 or 2 other offensive pieces, because obviously if you let Galladay go, you're going to need to get a wide receiver in here as well. Which direction would you go? Would you hit full rebuild mode, or would you try to piecemeal it again for 1 more year with Matt Stafford?
Here's the problem that Bob Quinn left the Detroit Lions by trading away the 6th-round pick for, I believe, Everson Griffin. The Lions currently only have 5 picks in the 2021 NFL draft. You got a problem. And if you use one of them for a quarterback, you got a bigger problem, because that defense needs to be torn up. You got 2 players, 3 maybe you can build around, and that's Okudah and the Aquara brothers. The rest you can move on from. You can say, okay, be gone. We don't need you. There's no other impactful players. Austin Bryant, there's another name. Deshaun Hand's always injured. Trey Flowers, super expensive. You can move on and take the cap hit. So for me, I'm ready for the teardown. Rod Wood, everybody that was a scout, anybody not named Sheila, be gone. It's Sheila and Chris. Everybody else, you had a hand in this. All the scouts, all the people, all this, all that, you had a hand in our dysfunction. So we're done. We're moving forward. Matthew Stafford, Kenny Galladay, every single asset has to be torn down just to potentially get 3 to 4 more picks. And then I would even argue you got to go 9 players deep on defense all the way across. You got Cephas. You can go out and sign a free agent wide receiver, draft one, and now you got your 3, and then you heavily use TJ Hawkinson and Swift next year. The offense can be maintained and is a lot closer to productivity than that defense. That defense is nothing. You have 3 players, 4 players max. There's nothing there. The scheme needs to be completely changed. Go to a 4-3, a lot more aggressive, a lot more use. Bye-bye Jared Davis, bye-bye Jelani Tavai, find 4 new linebackers. You're going to have to retool it through free agency and the draft. So I know it's hard. Everybody thinks that, Matthew Stafford, seeing him shine, playing with injured rib, the tough narrative. Look, nobody questions that. Unfortunately, let the man have some success in his later time. You're going to get the man killed for what? Your pleasure? It's bottom line. Nobody said that the guy's a bust or that he can't throw. Yeah, he's going to throw the bad interception. Yeah, he's going to do these things. Bottom line, the recipe with Matthew Stafford doesn't work. However you come to the conclusion as to why, how much of it is him, how much of it is... Look, Dan Miller said it on his show. He doesn't have Derrick Henry. He doesn't have nothing. He has, an injured Kenny Galladay that maybe wants to be here. Maybe he's going to take a big money deal, maybe get franchised. There's nothing here for him. So he's not winning in year 13. He's not winning in year 14. So you're going to gamble on a 35 to 36-year-old Matthew Stafford that he's going to stay healthy, that he's going to be productive. Sorry, guys. I'm not being negative. In the name of winning, you got to tear it up. Is it going to be successful? I can't say that. But this isn't. That I can say. And that's the point. Everyone's like, oh, you're so negative. You're anti-Stafford. What about the cap hit? Take the cap hit. Draft third. Okay, and see, here's the thing that people don't understand. When you bring them facts, they have to back down. We've said it before. The best team of the decade was 2014. Well, how the hell did the Lions get to have that good team? You drafted top 5 in 2008. You drafted top 5 in 2009. You got Ndamukong Suh with a top 5 pick. You drafted again in 2013, top 5. Okay, the culmination of 4 to 5 top 5 draft picks culminated in a defense that played really well in 2014. Stafford, Calvin, Suh.
That's the key.
Years, years.
They built that defense.
Yeah, they built a defense, and through years of top 5 picks, rounds 1 through 7. Okay? Look, I think people that talk about tanking are not explaining it right. We're not talking about the players going out there and just laying down. But Matthew Stafford, sorry, you got to sit. You can't play. You're done. We don't need you to get hurt. We need to trade you for a first and a third. You're done. You sit down. It's my call. We're tanking without saying we're tanking. Look, we just want to, Matthew's ribs kind of took a turn, whatever. He's not playing. You go out there and you don't put forth the best effort to win, and you move forward for the organization. That's what tanking means. It's not you don't say, hey, Matthew, I need you to go out there and just throw the ball to the other team. You just don't play them. You just do the things you got to do to ensure a top 5 pick. And that's how you do it in the NFL if you have a general manager that has his wits about him. So unfortunately for the Lions, what's going to happen. They're probably going to win the next 2 games. Oh, Stafford's the best. And then you go from a potential top 5 pick to number 12. And that's what the Lions do, man. That's the reason why they're stuck. I think when you remove the emotion, when you remove the win-at-all-cost mentality, you get to see clearer. The sky opens up. You get to see, what's the pathway to winning? Listen, we've won. We understand how to do this. It's quite simple. The Lions have done it. Just tank for 3 more years, build up 20 draft picks, hit on 10 of them, get free agents, 5 good ones, and move forward. So, and I think it's coming. I don't think the next regime can be that bad. Playoff wins are coming. You have to be like inept to just be a team that cannot get to the postseason. It's coming. Then the next step will be to see if we can get to the ultimate prize. So
here's the deal. Looking at basically the roster construction and looking at the hit you'd have to take. Next year, if you were to trade Stafford, you were to trade a guy like Trey Flowers, trade a guy like Justin Coleman, trade a guy like Jesse James, trade a guy like Jamie Collins. You're going to take a hit with the dead cap money, and you're going to take a hit with the cap, just going to be a cap hit all the way around. But the thing is, if you go and you acquire some good draft picks, or you just acquire draft picks in general, because like you said, if you're going to invest in a quarterback, you roughly have 4 to spend on the rest of this team, which isn't a lot. If you can get some draft picks in, you get some draft capital for these guys, able to kind of tear it all down and rebuild it, you're going to suck for at least a year or 2. Like it's just how it's just growing pains. I mean, you look at the Los Angeles Chargers. Look at Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert was a guy you could have had, and he's a stud. He's an absolute stud. Now that team's not great. That team's not very good at all. And that team is probably 2 or 3 years away from really contending for a playoff spot and making some noise in the playoffs. Wouldn't you much rather, as a Detroit Lions fan, be in that situation than in this constant state, perpetually being like, well, do we keep Stafford? Do we let him go? We might have a chance at making the playoffs. All we kind of want to do is play meaningful games in December. And then by the time October, November rolls around, you're ready to burn the entire season down because it sucks ass. You have some pieces here. DeAndre Swift looks like a piece if he can stay healthy. Again, if. Frank Ragnow, really good on the offensive line. Your offensive line this is probably the best offensive line that you've had in a long, long time. TJ Hawkinson looks like he will be a Tony Gonzalez-esque tight end. Like he might be like the next Rob Gronkowski. Like he's going to be an every year a Pro Bowl player. Hawkinson's a great pick. Not the pick that I would have took at that time, but he's going to be a very good player. Okay. Okuda, I have no idea about, but you do have some pieces here that you can kind of work with. But the majority of your roster, you've got to scrap and you've got to bite the bullet, and you're going to have to take that cap hit, and you're going to have to work this out to where in 2 or 3 years, you'll be a really competitive team. If you're a good general manager coming in, you've got a ton of work to do. And there is a lot that's going to have to kind of fall right for you. But you can kind of advance this. You can get this going in the right direction by moving away from this roster that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia put together with all of these rehashes from New England, all of these players that they brought in that were supposed to be scheme fits that just don't have a lot of talent left because they're older guys. Desmond Trufant is a perfect example. You get rid of a guy like Darius Slay, who isn't necessarily in his prime anymore. He's on the backside of his career, but still Darius Slay is still a top 10 cornerback for a guy like Desmond Trufant, who came in with a ton of injury issues and is another guy who has been on the backside of his career for probably the last 2 or 3 years. It just didn't make sense. And you laced him with a $10 million a year contract. It's just dumb. The way this roster is put together makes absolutely zero sense.
Yeah.
I'm in lockstep with you. We got to move on.
We need to strip it all down. Piston style, Red Wing style. You got to move forward. I'm sorry. The leverage entails moving on from Matthew Stafford. You take the hit, $20 million. So be it. We're not trying to win now. We're trying to win in 2022, 2023. That's it. You can do it. Reasonably speaking, look at the Browns. There's your model. Couple years, couple draft picks, get the young quarterback. Boom, you got your situation. There's a model. Copy that. It's not that hard. I just think that the fans want to hold on to Stafford so bad, but I am seeing more and more of let the man leave and win. It's not going to happen here. So it's 50-50. I get it. But guys, you don't have to keep tagging us and showing me the throws. I watch the games. The man can throw the football. I'm asking you people to just pay attention. He's the quarterback of a 5-9 team with a horrible defense. And that's what you want to keep him here for? He's going to have an even worse team next year. The poor man, broken ribs, what are you waiting for? The next time the ACL, the ligament, what are you waiting for to be next? Are you guys that much of masochists that you want the man to fall apart in front of your eyes so that he can play tough? Come on, let the man play for a contender. Let him go to Indy. Get us a first and a third. Let him go to the 49ers. Let the Verlander situation happen. We can all clap. Yep, clap, 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 clap. He'll win somewhere else, and he can be viewed as the quarterback, the caliber that he deserves. Here in Detroit, he's just going to be an afterthought. He's going to be the guy that played for 15 years and did nothing. And that's just the way it is. And eventually speaking, nobody can, you're going to give him $30 million when he's 35 years old? I mean, come on. Nobody does that. Start the process of tearing it down, tank for a couple years, and call it what it is. Don't bullshit people. People know we're going to have hard times. Use those words. Hard times are ahead. But in the name of winning at the ultimate price, this PR thing is not hard. You and I could do it. Detroit, 2021 is going to be really hard. But if you stick with us, it's going to be lean. It's going to be tough. But we're going to bring in players that are going to be really, really the foundational pieces of the next decade of Lions football. If you give us a couple years, watch what we do in the draft, watch what we do through free agency. It's going to be lean for a year or two. If you stick with us, we promise that we're going to bring in enough talent that you're going to see playoff wins, great moments, and a very loud and ruckus Ford Field for decades to come. Please give us the patience. We appreciate it, and it's going to happen. Go Lions, one pride. Whoop, whoop. Play the horn. The smoke comes out. Bam, drop the mic and leave. You got the fans. It's not that hard. But when you try to, what are you going to do? You're going to sell that we're going to try to win next year? Are you crazy? What do you think, that a miracle's going to happen and just shine down on Matthew Stafford and the defense, boom, is going to have 20 new players and they're all going to gel and they're all going to win 12 games next year? Come on, guys, get your head out of your asses. Start to think long term. Stop thinking about the short term. These players, we said 3 years ago, we're not attached to any of them. The defense is terrible. We weren't attached to anybody. So we want to stop saying 8-8 every year for the predictions. Let this team flourish. Take a step back. Blow it all up. Chris Spielman being on board is fine. He'll target the right people. Winning is coming. I got a good feeling. If it's Saleh, if you go Bieniemy and you go offensive, I don't know about it. I think you have the makings of a good offense here, and you have the makings of some talent. So I would say that if you bring in a scheme that works, then you can use the talent wisely and figure it out. But it's the Lions. So those that are skeptical, I understand. If you say, well, if they pick him, it won't work. If they pick that, it won't work. We'll be here, Doc and Jock, even if we're at episode 700, figuring out how to win with the Lions. But I appreciate the debate, though. I do appreciate the respectful nature. You make it, cause when people start sending you messages on Facebook about the stuff you're tweeting and writing about, you're like, oh, shit, we've gone into that. We've gone into that zone. You're going to find my name and reach out to me. Oh, snap. Luckily, it's been respectful. Nobody's wished harm on me just yet, but the Stafford articles, rubbing some people the wrong way, but I appreciate you reading it. I appreciate you understanding what I'm talking about with Okudah and reading it. So the headline's the headline. You read it, and you go forward from there. Now, real quickly, I just want to get your quick assessment on this because you're a journalist. Adam has a journalistic background. Real interesting story has come out now with the payment now, the $900 billion stimulus that's come out. It's great, $600. Adam and I are going to find good ways to use it. Woo woo. But interesting note that's kind of been talked about and debated. Just give me your quick 2-minute thought on it. Should journalists and written publications apply for it and get it if the government says, yeah, we'll give it to papers? Because, while they need it, it kind of, in my mind, undermines the quote-unquote free press when the government's giving you money and then you're tasked with covering it. I don't know. It's real interesting, the debate that's being had online. You can find it in regards to the bailouts and the money that's being handed out to help people that are struggling. What do you think?
I mean, I think at this point, everybody should probably get a stimulus check. I understand the dualistic nature of that situation where if you accept the handout from the government, can you really turn around and then criticize the government or analyze or speak about them?
Yeah. Objectively.
Right, from an unbiased spot. So I get it. I understand it. I think journalists are completely underpaid as it is. Yeah. It's part of the reason I don't write anymore is
you gotta be crazy to write. You got to be crazy to write.
There's no money in it.
All right.
So I think already they're underpaid. Look, anytime you can fatten your pocket a little bit more,
we're all for it. We're all for it.
Not?
Yeah, we're all for it. Okay. Yep. Now, to be factual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you write and you generate, let's say, 7-figure reads, there's an opportunity for growth. Let me just say that, okay? Not going to toot my own horn here, but
toot toot.
I'm going to say this. I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to work with SI, to create videos, to put out stuff, and to grow everything that we've done here. And that's thanks to you guys, thanks to Adam, Vito, Logan, everybody that's done work here with the operation. But in anything, it's really simple. Anything that you try to do it to the best of your ability, go balls to the wall, make huge goals, and anything you do on a big level is worth it. Yeah, you can't write one article a day. It's impossible. You got to hit 6 to 7 and interesting type stuff, have an audience. It's not easy. I wouldn't advise it. You got to be crazy. You got to just be wanting to just do stuff. And part of the reason is for me, it's not the money. My presence at every presser is like a huge FU to the media in my mind, because I'm a podcaster and I'm showing up here asking questions. It's a huge way of saying, hey, I did it. I wanted to do it. And because you told me I couldn't, here I am. And that's really one of the big, and I keep saying it, one of the reasons I'm in the media is because someone told me I couldn't be. And that's really what it is. It's just a way to say, yeah, you told me I couldn't. Okay, I'm a podcaster. This is how I grew it. I grew it as a podcast with my cousin. We built a name, we built a following, and now we get to have fun with it. And the money is just that. But for the stimulus, I think they're going to have to walk a fine line with it, and you can't. I just don't think you can take the money. You got to find a way to get profitable. It's super hard, man. I don't see how they can do it. I don't see how you can have a growing, burgeoning staff on advertising income. It's going digital. It's going this way, podcasts, videos. Written is tough. You're going to have it shrink. There's going to be room for it, but it's going to shrink. You can't have 10 publications in a market. You're going to have 1, maybe 2, and that's that. And then one last thing too, man. Lions return back to the ticket. Craziness, huh? That even though the ticket is very hostile and really rambunctious in coverage of the Lions postgame, if you give the Lions a boatload of cash, bottom line, they'll work with you. And sometimes it's factually, that's just the way it is. If you give them a nice, healthy check, you can say anything about anybody.
But here's the thing. It only makes sense for them to be on an FM sports station.
Huge.
So the other station that they were on with WJR is not a sports station. The coverage was piss poor because it sounded like you had Lions puppeteers basically in the room talking about it. Like Lions would just get blown out by 40 points. They're like, yeah, tough loss, but we've seen a lot of development from
DJ Hawkinson.
Like, what the hell are you talking? Like, are you watching the same game?
Yeah, right.
So no, it only makes sense for them to go back to the ticket.
Yeah.
And on top of it, you can reach more people.
Right. It's about, and they'll give you more money. And that's just the way it is. So you take a little bit of gruff, they realize it. And I didn't realize it until I saw the coverage. The second that decision was made, the person who was part of the negotiation got fired a month later. Yeah. So they realized, oops, we just cut our audience in half. Oh boy, let's make the best of it. And they stuck with it for 5 years. And give WJR credit. It is, an entity they paid. So yeah, obviously you and I are not consumers of that kind of situation. We don't want rah. Hey, if you play bad, you're going to get the criticism and look at the calls in the effort and pursuit. And criticism's not bad. It's just in the pursuit of winning. So great stuff, sir. Yeah, the ticket only sports station in the country with all 4 professional teams in one spot. Mighty ticket, man.
Yeah, but do you know why?
Entercom's, well, they have huge ratings and a huge audience and a major personality.
It's because nobody around here wants to invest in a second sports station or give it the time that it needs to develop. Yeah. And then they're too damn busy trying to make a quick buck, and they promote old has-been talent that shouldn't even be on the air anymore. They bring guys from Jock Radio, and they're like, here, let's have them talk about sports. They don't know shit about sports.
Right.
It's freaking dumb the way shit gets done around this damn town.
So pretty soon,
piss me off. See, you see what you've done?
No,
it riled me up. Merry freaking
okay.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Look, I see your books. In a couple of years, you got $15 million. Drop it on a sports station. Yeah. I see your styling and profiling. See all the Christmas trees. See all the lovely activities you're doing. So you're doing good. I'm proud of you. I think that those fat checks you keep cashing in you got to stop hoarding it. You got to give back. You got to. One
day I'll show you my savings account and how it's just dried up and I've got $0 bills.
You got to pay your fair share, man.
Is that what it is?
You got to pay your fair share. Give back. You're taking. You got to stop hoarding all the money. Mm-hmm. So listen, it's okay. Big money guys that bring in big money also tend to be big spenders. Just tighten the spending, and tell the missus, look.
The thing is, I don't even spend a lot of money.
Yeah. Tell the missus, look, I know I promised you diamonds, and I know I've been giving you this. I know I've been, buying my dog these, Louis Vuitton sweaters. I got to cut that out. Cut that out. You'll have more money.
Besides my condo and the stuff I bought for my condo, the largest purchase I've made was a new set of golf clubs. Otherwise, it's like groceries. That's it.
We're all in the same boat. It gets worse when you get,
honestly, you're the big spender out of the two of us, Mr. Baller.
Yeah. I'm just trying to scrape by little by little, man. And it's so
scrape by little. That's what the guy who has dollar bills falling out of his pocket says. I'm just trying to scrape by.
I need that.
Anybody want to pick up that 20 for me? Thanks.
Yeah, can I borrow $20? Cuz great stuff. Follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. You've made it fun for us to broadcast in our own way for 7 years. We're going strong. We're going to hit episode 400 in 2021. We'll get back to the hijinks and hilarity in person when Corona ends, but you guys have stuck with us even though we've been apart, but it's been a fun 6 months, a fun holiday time, and I greatly appreciate podcasting with my cousin Adam Strozinski. Stay tuned next week. Ho, 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 everyone. We'll talk again.